Welcome back to 100 Pounds Down, where we preach the gospel of GLP-1 and the word is good. I'm Kristen DiBiase, and after a lifetime of struggling with obesity, I lost over 41% of my body weight on tirzepatide, also known as Mounjaro and Zepbound, and I'm never going back. If you've been considering starting anti-obesity meds like these, Ozempic or Wegovy, you're already in the middle of your journey, or you're getting close to that maintenance phase and wondering what comes next, bring it in. Well, hey, everybody. I know it has been a hot minute since I have been back, but I am here live with you actually today because I want to talk about this information that just came out a couple of days ago from the FDA. Eli Lilly and Company did report a few days ago that they have now entered a phase where they are finished with their shortage for manufacturing tirzepatide and the surrounding materials that enable them to create enough Zepbound or Mounjaro for the masses who are clamoring for these GLP-1 medications. So I wanted to chat with you all a little bit about what that actually means and what it means for you if you're a person who is taking the brand name medication, or if you are a person who has gone the route that we like to call here on the channel and a lot of our other channels here in this GLP-1 community, Plan C. So as many of you all know, this has been an arduous couple of years. When these drugs came out on the market, it was a huge splash when Mounjaro and Zepbound really first began coming to people's notice. There's always been shortages from almost the immediate inception of the drugs, especially after Ozempic started getting really well known and celebrities jumped on this craze of a lot of times kind of abusing the use of these really critical life-saving medications for folks who have diabetes, metabolic syndrome, or other types of issues where they need some kind of a metabolic and hormonal boost to really re-regulate their systems in order to balance their lives and be able to maintain a healthy weight. So I took a look and I want to share with you all here, and let me see if I can pop this up here so people are able to view this. Let's get in here and take a look, see. Okay, so we are looking, and I will put these in the citations down in the description box. This is actually the webpage for the FDA, and this is where they were discussing these FDA drug shortages coming to an end with Eli Lilly and Company. So if you take a look here on the drug shortages page for the FDA, they've got a current and resolved drug shortage that has been reported to the FDA. I'm pretty sure that right here, this says storage, but it's probably supposed to say shortage. I'm not quite sure, but that is what I'm guessing. But you see, we really have been hanging in here for a long time in the GLP-1 community, right? This shortage started on my husband's birthday, 12/15, back in 2022. I had at that time just barely, I was about 2 days short of a month in on my personal tirzepatide, Mounjaro, Zepbound journey, and they were in a shortage. So this shortage has lasted from mid-December 2022, and now has finally ended on October 2nd of 2024. So almost 2 years we have been in this shortage. Now, at times, we know that this shortage was caused by a few different issues. There were shortages in terms of the actual kind of raw materials for creating the active ingredient at points in time. At other points in time, because Eli Lilly not only put patent protection on the compound itself, terzepatide. And so when I say compound here, I'm saying that with a lowercase c, meaning the ingredient. At times, in addition to the ingredient being a little bit in short supply for them to be able to create the medication, they also put patents on the pen that delivers that medication. And so at some points in time, there were issues with them being able to source enough of the materials and the manufacturing to keep up with the demand for production of those pens that delivered this medication. So there's been a few different reasons for why they have had shortages during this period in time, and not just demand was the issue. At the same time, we know that there are kind of two different brand names of this particular active ingredient, terzepatide, that Eli Lilly sells and has branded. There's Mounjaro, which is for specifically diabetes, controlling type 2 diabetes very specifically, and then also having some other applications that Eli Lilly has been pursuing in the ensuing time around heart health. And then there's the second, which, even though these formulations are exactly the same, the dosing is exactly the same, the titration schedules in their patient literature that they talk about are exactly the same. There is another, which is called Zepbound, and this one was approved specifically for the management of chronic obesity, so for weight loss. So because there were two different indications that this medication was primarily being used for, there's a lot of different populations, although we know here on the channel and some of our friendly channels in this community that there's a lot of overlap with those things. You're going to see people who have complications that, in that constellation of issues that are happening, you will see a lot of overlap between folks who maybe have diabetes and folks who have metabolic syndrome or chronic weight management issues. Oh, thank you so much, Mary. I see a comment from Mary down here in the live. So glad to see you again. Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't want to belabor things too much, but sometimes I can do the most, right? Everybody, we know I've got a lot of things going on, and number one within all of that is always work. And so sometimes I've got to take a break so I can make sure that I'm still being okay and able to give my best to myself, my job, my husband, all of that good stuff. So thank you so much. And to honestly, the subscribers that we have out there, thank you for hanging in with me during this little bit of a hiatus. We really did not lose any subscribers from the channel. So I really appreciate all of you who tune in to get the skinny on some of this scientific and a little more technical information around the GLP-1 journey. Okay, so I want to kind of scroll a little bit so you can look at what they are talking about here, where they have talked about the fact that this shortage is over. So this is the same information for down here. You see all of the different formulations, right? All of the different dosages of Mounjaro and Zepbound down here within the injections. You see your 2.5s around here. You see your 5s all the way up through 15. And this information is repeated for each of these different dose formulations. And it is repeated across both Mounjaro and Zepbound. So it says, note, even when a medication is available, patients may not always be able to immediately fill their prescription at a particular pharmacy. That is especially true for refrigerated products and products with multiple dose strengths due to factors like ordering practices and incentives, cold chain logistical considerations, and retailer capacity constraints. Patients may experience variability at a particular pharmacy location, regardless of whether a drug is in shortage. So when I'm reading that, what I'm taking from that is we want to focus for a minute on the folks who have been using the brand name versions of this medication, be that Mounjaro or Zepbound. A lot of folks have done that Mounjaro dance, that Zepbound dance, where you are bouncing from pharmacy to pharmacy just to see, like, is my dose in stock? Is a dose in stock? Forget my dose. Can we get a dose at all? Right? It can really just feel crazy making for people sometimes when you are trying to stay on a schedule and make sure you're getting those shots in every week as you need them. The stress of wondering when and where you may be able to pick up your next box was really critical for a lot of people. So what I'm seeing when I'm reading this here is, okay, they have announced that based on all of their sourcing, all of their manufacturing issues, all of those things that were part of what came into play with causing these shortages, they have said that we're good based on the number of people and the trajectory in the number of consumers who we see who are going to be getting on this medication. We've got what it takes to do the manufacturing, to be able to get the pens made. They made changes recently, as many of us know, that instead of just using these pens, they started to also be able to do the vials to really kind of cut down on some of the demand that was there for people that are comfortable using the vial and giving themselves an injection using, the insulin-sized needles. They were doing a lot of things there. And so between that and shoring up the number of facilities that they have built and the capacity within those facilities for doing this manufacturing, both of the medication itself, as well as the distribution and manufacturing around the conveyances of this medication, they have said, we've got enough for the demand. So we are ending the shortage. However, in any kind of given place where people are living, depending on the demand in various regions, depending on how much stock people did have, and depending on the timing as they're going to start rolling out, sending people more of the medication to their local pharmacies, the shortage on paper has ended, but we may still be seeing some of that same scramble that a lot of us have been used to seeing people have to do. So even though the shortage is over, it may take a little bit of time before that impact starts to ripple out, and you feel a little bit of a difference and a little bit more relief in the consistency of your medication being available at your local pharmacies when you need it, when the script comes in, when it's clutch and it's time for you to either titrate up or get your next box. So that is what I really wanted to point out here on this particular page. Now, one of the other things that I want to talk about is the people that were doing Plan C. So as you all know, I'm not going to get into too much detail here because I'm very, very wary around being either shadow banned or reported by multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical companies against whom I do not have the resources and or the cash and or the time to fight myself getting kicked off of YouTube. Because we do know of folks, especially in the earlier days of the GLP-1 community, where that did happen, and they've not been able to get back onto YouTube. So I'm not trying to get my channel canceled here. What I will do briefly here is I will toss up, if you want the background information about this, when we get the replay, I will put a link someplace, maybe up here-ish, that will take you to my Too Hot video that is on YouTube. If you are somebody who is looking through on my channel page right now, if you go to the start here, or, are you new to the GLP-1 lifestyle, that section, you'll see a video that talks about Too Hot for YouTube. Start with that video, and then that's going to take you to my website, where there's additional information that gives more background around what Plan C is and how Plan C works. And if you are looking for that information, let me show you here. So that is the link you can go to on my website and start the process of getting some additional information, because there is definitely a rule. You do not really want to talk about the ins and outs of Plan C on YouTube. So I will leave this up, and we will talk a little bit about what is a possibility for a lot of people who have gone the route of Plan C. So in order to do this, I'm going to pop this stuff back up here again on the screen, and we are going to switch and look at another tab. Okay, so this will probably be the first and the last time that you will see this information, this word ever kind of physically appearing on my channel. And I see another comment from V as in Victory. Hello, hi. V as in Victory says, hello, great to see you again. Thanks for providing this information. You're so welcome. I was trying to get back in the swing of things here, and so we are rolling along on this stuff. So let's delve into this a little bit. And if you have not seen the Too Hot series of videos on my website, once this live is over, I will, end up probably fixing things up to add, a couple of things in there, and there will be the replay. So this will always be available as a video that people can look at. So you can come back to this if you haven't seen the Too Hot videos. And after looking at the Too Hot videos, and I've also added a little bit of an update message at the top above the Too Hot information that goes along with some of the things I'm about to tell you here. After you've seen the basic information around Plan C and the Too Hot videos, this video will make a little bit more sense to folks because, again, I don't want to get too deep into the nuts and bolts of these things. But this is another page on the FDA's website. So this is also then released on the same date as our notice from the FDA that Eli Lilly has announced that they are no longer in a tirzepatide shortage. So the headline here is FDA clarifies policies for Plan Cers as national GLP-1 supply begins to stabilize. And so they said, they are putting the note in here hey, we've figured out, we've heard from Lilly, they've given us this information. The shortage of tirzepatide, the shortage of Mounjaro and Zepbound is over. The increase in demand was what created that shortage, but that is done. They do have the product availability and the manufacturing capacity that will be able to meet the huge demand from folks like us in the marketplace. And again, that there may be some intermittent localized supply disruption as those products move through the supply chain from the manufacturer, then distributors, then to your local pharmacies. So that's just a little opener, but what this message here is really about is gonna be this section here in the middle. So this section says, FDA reminds planners of the legal restrictions on making copies of FDA-approved medications. Plan C medications are not approved by the FDA. Medications that are approved by the FDA go through a rigorous review for safety, effectiveness, and quality as part of the pre-market approval process. Plan C needs to meet conditions to qualify for exemptions under sections 503A and 503B of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, the FD&C Act. So this is where the ability for people to avail themselves of Plan C and the companies and the clinics that do this maneuver, this is how they do it. And so what the FDA is doing here is reminding folks that one of the big ways that this is allowable to do is because there is something that is in a shortage or it's not commercially available, as the FDA would say in the language that they are sharing. So if you are doing something and availing or offering the concept of Plan C, and your basis for being able to do so is the fact that there is a shortage and the shortage ends, you're not going to be able to use that exemption any longer. So there are a few, pieces around that get into nitty gritty and detail about what that means. But that's kind of what the first part means. Now, then the second part of that regulation in 503B, so we just covered 503A. The part in 503B essentially says if you've got facilities that are doing the Plan C option, it can't be basically a bootleg generic. You can't do that. And so there are some other, restrictions beneath that for those who like to dig into the rules. Again, I'm going to put the links to both of these in the description. And if you go to these two document links, you'll see where I have clicked right here. If you click on either of these two links, it's going to take you directly to the legal basis underneath how people have been availing themselves of Plan C. So what they are saying here is a very big flashing sign of a notice and a reminder to organizations that are providing this Plan C option. The shortage is over. So if that's what you are doing as your basis for Plan C, you're gonna need to kind of cease what you're doing or do something else to be able to get in compliance and not run afoul of these rules. So what does that mean exactly? Down here in this next section, they're just giving people updates around the shortages. So we see with Lilly, tirzepatide, there's no more shortage. Dulaglutide, still in a shortage. Semaglutide, which we know, as Ozempic or Wegovy, still in a shortage. The manufacturer has reported that all but one of the presentations are available. So when they talk about presentations, again, we looked back on that other page. Again, a presentation is, the version of that particular medication. So it's a specific dosage and a specific route of administration. So we know, for example, with semaglutide, that Novo Nordisk, the folks who make Ozempic and Wegovy, have been looking very, very hard and working on a formulation for an oral pill version of semaglutide. So here, there's still a shortage for something with the semaglutide injection, but it looks like, based on what they say here, the manufacturers reported all but one of the presentations are available, is that they're only in shortage for a certain dose. Every other dose for semaglutide is no longer in a shortage. Then liraglutide, again, so dulaglutide and liraglutide, those are the OGs of GLP-1 medications. Those were out before tirzepatide or semaglutide came on the scene. So, we're looking at things like Trulicity and Saxenda. Okay, so again, the FDA is still continuing working with manufacturers to help to resolve any shortages that remain for any of these medication. They're going to continue, again, just monitoring the situation and letting people know what's going on. And then, there's additional information down here. So again, what does this mean for all of you? So here is the tea on what this means. If you are a person who has been using Plan C as your option in order to save money through some of these various organizations that have been making Plan C available, and the way that they've made Plan C available is simply just because there is a shortage, you all are at risk for the organization where they are giving you that option, having to cease production in order to stay in the clear and not be breaking federal law. Within Plan C, there's kind of a pure Plan C, which is what, for cases here, I'm going to just say is the bootleg generic, right? So there's different ways that you can do a Plan C option that folks have kind of done, and one of those is just the straight up bootleg generic, which is the one that is the least legally defensible version of that, and kind of the one that people don't want to necessarily get mixed up in, because we knew the shortages would be ending at some point in time and this day had to come. So if you are taking the option of Plan C that is essentially just a bootleg generic, you very specifically are in danger. You're at risk that your source will dry up, and you will probably need to either find a new source, or perhaps the place that is working with you, your clinicians are working with the places where they are getting sourcing for their Plan C, and they are going to maybe pause and regroup and do some things to be on a better legal footing. There are a lot of kind of intricacies here, and you can kind of read all of the legalese that kind of tells you kind of what that is. But that is the kind of the highest level of risk for somebody who is doing Plan C. Maybe the next level of risk for somebody that's doing Plan C is going to be somebody that is on a version of Plan C that is like the Plan C option that my husband and I have taken. There are a lot more kind of things that are in place around that to be able for it to be on a little bit better footing to not have to change things. And I've got information in more detail around that on my website. If you go to the Too Hot and get the information there from that set of videos. So essentially, you will have people who have been taking the medication, the brand name versions of that, having just better access, having a little bit of a load off in terms of worrying and wondering, am I going to get my medication going? Can I get it when I need it or not? And for folks that have gone the Plan C route, you may see issues in terms of places that you have gone suddenly closing down or not being able to fulfill for you, because if they do, they will be breaking the law. So you may see pauses and interruptions for the folks that are moving into different models that put them back in compliance, or you may see just a straight up lack of availability and run into issues in that way. Now, what could that look like on a further evaluation of things? Well, if we kind of apply just the general principles of supply and demand within economics, we already know how much the pricing is when we're looking at the brand name medications. If you've got a lot of places that are doing Plan C that were not doing it correctly, I think the places that are doing Plan C in a legally defensible manner are going to possibly end up maybe changing their pricing. Now, it's never going to be as expensive as doing the brand name medication, because that's the whole, reason why people do Plan C, is to save money. For a small percentage of people, maybe they cannot connect with a willing clinician who believes in obesity medicine or obesity science, and they've been stymied by their doctor or things like that. And those people are looking at this because this is an option for them to get access to medication at all, compared to not having access. And those people will not be as price sensitive as other people would be. But generally, you could see prices increase for Plan C as this rolls out and we see what kind of happens in the landscape of individuals who are either not allowed to run their companies any longer, or who have to take a hit while they figure out ways to reformulate. And the one thing that I will say that I always like to remind people of, there's other options out there that I just think are too dangerous and a little sketchy. And I really don't advise that anyone do those. And so for people that are wondering, who've not seen the Too Hot videos, I'm not going to say the word here, but the initials for what one of those options is RP. RPs, I don't like it. It involves you having to do some of the work yourself. And I find that really dangerous. I really just don't trust that. And then the other route is, sourcing from externally to the country. There's a lot of counterfeit, not good versions of Plan C that come from China. It's very dangerous. It's around, the same type of danger of messing with things in your body as we see in the opioid crisis. You see people nowadays that are accidentally unaliving because street medications that they have gotten are not what the people who gave them to them say they are. And that's very, very scary. And that is essentially the boat that you are putting yourself in if you endeavor to try to get Plan C from overseas, but especially if you're trying to do Plan C from China. I really just cannot discourage you further from that. So that is basically what I wanted to share with you all about that for today. So I think it went okay. So that is honestly, I think, all I have got for the moment. But let's see if I can take us out of all of this in the same way that I usually do when I am going out. So let's see if I can do it. And Mounjaro shortage is all about. And we also did a walkthrough on our new GLP-1 journal. If you think that weight loss injections might be right for you, talk to a medical professional, preferably an endocrinologist or a specialist in obesity medicine, because those are the folks who know these meds the best. I'm not a doctor and I'm not sponsored by any pharmaceutical companies. I'm just one woman who's sharing my own experiences and giving my opinions on these matters. And finally, if you find the channel helpful, absolutely hit that trifecta. Like, subscribe, notifications, and I'll see all of you on the other side. Thanks, everybody.